Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the CNBC TV 18 Mint Infra-Ministerial. We just saw a riveting session with the top secretaries who control the infrastructure sectors, taking us through what the priorities will be in FY16 and also how the government hopes to address some of the crucial challenges facing the sector. Joining us now is a man who's presented his second railway budget, a man who's promised to break the cycle of under-investment in the Indian railways to put it back on track. Please join me in welcoming the Minister for Railways, Mr. Suresh Prabhu. A big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Sir, the floor is yours.
So, good evening, friends. The railways are one of the very important part of a strategy of stepping up economic development in India. You want to bring growth in economy, then you need the pull and the push both. The pull will come in the form of demand that will be created by the railways from various sectors from which it will buy in a significant way. I was just hearing the previous panel in which the steel, the cement, all these are manufacturing sectors which the railways start investing more and more will have a huge pull effect on the economy. We invest into augmentation of capacity, modernization, improving safety. All of this again will have a huge demand on manufactured goods. And all in turn will of course boost economy. But that's one part of it. The push will come when we actually try to create better facilities, better connectivity, speed added to the train operations. All of this in turn again will bring in a higher economic development. We have seen it globally, also in a country like China, which through better connectivity, and that too particularly by railways, could bring in huge benefit to the economy. Of course, China has been investing upwards of 2% of the GDP for a long time. And as you know, the China GDP is now $10 trillion. Ours is little over $2 trillion. So you can imagine 5 times higher GDP and 2% of that when you invest, the absolute amount will come to what? And that is what, actually speaking, we should try to do to bring in a better turnaround into the railways. As you said a little earlier, the underinvestment is a cause of the problem, which has been identified for a long time. And therefore, we have to provide nutrition to the railways. If you are underweight, you must eat more. And therefore, to make railways run better, faster, safer, we have to make investments into the railways. And that's what we did in the last budget as well as this budget. I'm very happy to say that on one hand we are doing this, but we have a complete overarching strategy about how the railways should start functioning properly. So there's one set of policies and the interventions are in the form of making investment into those areas where the benefit will accrue very quickly. So one such area is obviously the doubling, the tripling of the railway lines, which will bring in quick benefits, which will improve the railways revenue stream, which will also improve speed, which will also reduce bottlenecks, and therefore the punctuality will also improve. In turn, of course, it will improve efficiency. That is one set. The second one is obviously to improve customer service. And we have taken a number of measures on that in terms of improving food quality, improving cleanliness, improving ticketing experience, changing the interiors of the train itself, and many other things. So that also has started yielding results. I am not saying it has transformed, but it's far, far better than what it was only a few months ago. And therefore that is something which we are trying to do. We are also trying to, in terms of customer experience, is something which is probably unparalleled anywhere else, is to bring in, use technology to address people's problem on a, as far as possible on the real-time basis. I was just talking to Stanford students who came to meet me, and they were aghast by knowing the numbers that 7 billion people we have as passengers every year. And you can imagine the magnitude of the complaint that we should be receiving. And knowing that we are all Indians, 7 billion means at least we'll get 15 billion complaints. So despite that, we are definitely trying to make sure that we address them on real-time basis, try to solve them as much as possible. And that in turn has resulted into improvement of the systems, the procedures, because if you see a pattern in complaint, you obviously improve that. The third one is, of course, making structural changes, whether it's a board, whether it's a delegation, which we were talking about earlier. All the powers of most of the economic decision making have been delegated. I see someone who was a member of the railway board sitting here, he will tell you, and there is a general manager who has written the letters, that what used to take 2 years, 3 years are now happening in a matter of few weeks. And that's a result of decision making process. We have put systems in place. And in fact, Mr. Santikumar will tell you how difficult it used to be to get a decision taken at the level of the minister. Now the minister doesn't have to take any decision because only he took one decision, that is to delegate. So this has resulted into complete change in attitude, decision making process faster. The second part of that is transparency. So even including all our contracts and everything else, we are trying to put it on e-tendering platform. Even recruitment, posting, all the matters which always were subjected to questioning, they're all put in a most transparent manner. There is a clarity about how the railways are going to move. So we already have a 5-year plan, but now we are preparing a complete business plan. Not just plan, a business plan. Because railway has to be a business organization as well, about how railways will work in the next few years' time. Also, we are preparing for the first time to avoid any arbitrariness in terms of deciding where the expansion should take place. A complete plan about 2030, about how the railway network should look like. Normally, such decisions are taken on the basis of some very narrow consideration. But we do not know what is the big picture in terms of the railway network, how it should look like. Also, to connect them to the coast, because we have 7,600 plus kilometers of coastline. So we really need to put all that into place. So we are doing that, also trying to bring in the speed. And I'm very happy to say that in last year, my good friend Shirin would have been interested to know that all this is fine, how do you implement? So this is a very good thing in India. When you announce the budget, they'll say, oh, but where is the implementation? So I wish we could implement first and then present a budget. That would be a good idea. But we can't do it like that. So we have to ask questions, so we asked that. So we said, okay, first time in railways history, I given action taken report attached to my budget speech, and 139 points have been acted upon. So that's the broad picture. So the same thing will continue year after year. But last year, we spent, in last 8 years, the average spending was 48,000 crores. Average spending, which we doubled it almost, and this year we'll actually make it even more, 1,21,000 crores. To make sure that we have a proper stream of revenues available for that. Of course, this is also part of my budget speech, but we are already tired of that. There is to be 4.3 kilometers per day was the rate at which we used to construct this in the last 6 years. We already made 7 kilometers per day of broad gauge converted this year. We would increase to 13 kilometers per day in 17-18 and 19 kilometers per day in 18-19. So that's the speed at which you are working. And this is a physical progress, not just monetary spending. And I always don't like to look at it like that, that we have done a great job because we have spent more. But what is the outcome? You can always spend money, but is the spending itself is on purpose, or spending has to be a means to an end? So therefore, we are actually creating a new system, and unfortunately, I'm carrying the baggage of being a chartered accountant. So thinking like this is to make sure that right from budgeting to expenditure to output and outcome, the entire change of events should be properly captured. We have started, incidentally. This is what I had mentioned in my previous budget, and we already launched a pilot program for this. And we'll try to roll it out on a pan-India basis. But this is also already started happening. 16-17, they increased electrification by almost 50%, and the target is 2,000 kilometers. In addition to all this dedicated freight corridor, where we are spending money, we already have this high-speed railways between Mumbai to Ahmedabad, which again will be $16 billion project on which the work has, the initial work has already started. We are working on new sources of revenue, because that is what is important. The former member traffic will tell you that over a period of time, over dependence only on one source of revenue is a very dangerous thing for the railways. And that too, only depending on few commodities. So on freight, we are trying to diversify the commodities from which we will get a revenue. First time probably is the railway budget, which Shantikumar will tell you, where the freight price will not increase, but in fact they will go down. We already started a rationalization process, and all of that what I mentioned on 25th of February, at least 12 points of that are already implemented. So therefore we are already started, not only the previous budget implementation, the present budget implementation also has started. Non-fare revenues, which are a very key part of railways restructuring, station redevelopment, monetizing of land, monetizing soft assets. These have never happened in the railway, probably anywhere, to make sure that we use the data and try to monetize it, and we are already working on it, overall in parcel business and also earning revenues from the exports. All of this we could do, and we are doing more, is to do target cost reduction. This year itself, on cost, we saved about 8,000 crores plus, and this year the same situation will continue. We are trying to make sure that we will create a holding company. We are also launched some missions, mission 25 tons for 25 ton axle load, mission zero accident for safety, mission procurement and consumption efficiency, for higher speed mission Raftar, mission 100 for commissioning 100 sidings for freight terminals, which again will increase our revenue in the next 2 years. Mission beyond bookkeeping, I just mentioned, mission capacity utilization. Also, we are trying to create a rail development authority to bring in some sort of a transparency as well as proper sanity into the issue of deciding freights. We already have some of the high-end PPP projects which are also working. We finalized this year 2 major contracts for the railways aggregating to 40,000 crores to make diesel and electric locomotives. That in turn will not only make in India possible, but also create an ecosystem to bring in SMEs and other segments into the fold. So this is what are the brief things. I am sure railways is something which is a very complex organization, very important organization, playing very key role into many aspects of socio-economic, political development of the country. So we have to make it run. I must put on record that is only thanks to our Prime Minister who pushes the railway development in a very significant way. His support is invaluable. In fact, I think he is the first Prime Minister who is taking so much of interest in the development of railways. So I think this again is helping the cause. We will definitely make sure that over a period of time, we will make railways an engine of growth which is capable of. And to make that happen, we have to make a beginning. And the beginning is we are trying to work on it. But of course, a long way to go. But this beginning itself was a step in the right direction. Hopefully, in the next few years, we'll see even far better result than what we could see in this year. This year was a very difficult year. 6 pay commission, huge burden. The Bonus Act, which was amended, increasing the minimum bonus amount payable, and the railway being the largest employer, we had to bear the maximum brunt of that. Also, the freights, which were falling because of the general core growth not growing, as we heard, the steel issue, the cement issue, we heard the iron ore issue, which all impact the movement of cargo. Because if you don't have the cargo in the market, how the railways will transport it? Transporter cannot create cargo. Transporter can only transport it. So therefore, we have to deal with that. But despite that, we could keep the operational ratio at a reasonable level. Every time in the past, whenever there has been a pay commission, the operation ratio has deteriorated to such an extent that we have seen in the past. This is the first year where it has not affected much, thanks to all these measures, including expenditure control. So we look forward to working, implementing it, giving a report of implementation, physical targets, as well as monetary targets. So we look forward to doing that. Thank you.
Mr.